What about his house in Tuscany? You mentioned that?
Yeah, I'm invited.
You know, when I told him it was beautiful there, out of the clear blue sky, he says there's nothing to rent. As if he doesn't want anyone else there.
Why?
I don't know, maybe he's embarrassed by Americans.
Yeah, well, maybe there aren't any houses to rent there.
In all of Tuscany? I wonder. But I don't want to be a
secondary character.
Hello, folks.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of But I Don't Want to Be a Secondary Character. This is a Seinfeld podcast where myself, Ivan, and my buddy Steven talk about the secondary characters in every episode of the show, and we do the episodes in random order. And I was saying, Steven, before we started recording, that this is our fifth last episode. We've come so far.
Yeah, definitely the home stretch. And yeah, it's been an awesome ride, and it's going to be sad to see it all finish, but lots of cool things coming up.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk about that, another time. So stay tuned. If you want to listen to us, we are on basically any podcast service, Apple, Spotify, yada, yada, yada. Be sure to subscribe and have a listen to our episodes, and leave us a 5-star review if you could as well. That'll help a lot.
Yeah, no, we'd really appreciate that. You can contact us by email as well, bidwabastpodcast@gmail.com. We're on all forms of social media. All those details are in the show notes, and you can support us financially as well.
Yeah, on PayPal for one-off donations, and we do have a Patreon with bonus podcasts, as well as this episode earlier than everyone else. You do get this one if you're on Patreon. So big thanks to our current subs, Holly, Nikia, Jeff, and Neil. So they get access to pretty much all our bonus stuff for $2 US a month.
Yeah, pretty good deal if I do say so myself. And like you said, they get access to our standard episodes a week earlier. Finally, we do have a Facebook group. It's called Seinfeldisms. It's the biggest Seinfeld community on the internet. Check it out if you want to join the fun. We're up to 138,000 members now, I believe, last time I checked.
Growing.
Yeah.
Growing.
Keeps growing, doesn't stop, and lots of really cool things coming up. So check it out and keep an eye on it.
It's like the Bitcoin of Seinfeld pages. It just keeps growing. Like every day it goes up like $5,000.
Yeah, not as
10 grand.
Not as chaotic as Bitcoin, but yeah, definitely keeps growing.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, really good. So anyway, check that one out. And speaking of Seinfeldisms, every week we talk about any Seinfeld-related events that have happened in our lives. I have nothing this week for a second week in a row, but what about you, mate? What do you have?
Yeah, I've got a couple. So one has happened before. I know it's happened to you. I was in Richmond the other day and I saw the much-loved Larry David mural just on, I think it's Victoria Road. Through Richmond.
Victoria Street, yeah.
Victoria Street.
The Latte Larry's, yep.
Yep, that's right. So that was cool. And secondly, I went away for the weekend, and the restaurant that I went to, a cafe that I went to in the town that I went away to, had a dog, I guess like a cafe mascot, and his name was Kramer.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Did he just like slide through the door?
Yeah, no. That would have been good though if he'd sort of slid through the door and, said something kooky and made weird percussive sounds. But no, like he was just he was more like Newman. He was kind of just big and fat and lazy.
Oh, how cute.
Yeah.
Kramer.
Yeah, Newman.
Love it.
Newman body, Kramer name.
Oh, fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah, I didn't get to ask. We had a brief chat to the owner, but it was really busy. I did want to ask if it was a Seinfeld reference, but didn't get around to doing that. But I'm just going to assume it was. Or
plot twist, he's a fan of the film Kramer versus Kramer.
Could be.
And you ask him like if he watches Seinfeld, and he's like, "No, I don't watch that shit."
Yeah, Seinfeld.
I'm a Dustin Hoffman fan.
Yeah, yep. No Seinfeld here. Seinfeld free zone.
No.
Yeah,
that's right. I'm a Friends fan.
Yeah, if that was the case, I would have just got up and left without even paying.
Another establishment to add to my blacklist.
Oh yeah, yep.
Oh yeah, it's on.
Yeah.
Nice. What about Seinfeld news, buddy?
0 this week. I searched high and low, even for more obscure pieces of Seinfeld news. No luck.
Yeah. Lots of cool stuff has happened around the world recently, but nothing Seinfeld related. So there you go, nice and quick.
Yeah, we're smashing through it so far.
Indeed. I reckon let's not take a break now. Let's just get straight into it, huh?
Yeah. I'm feeling the same. Taking a break now would be a bit weird.
Yeah, it would be.
a break is something you have to earn. It's like
that's right.
It's like starting work, replying to one email and going, "Oh, all right, well, I better go get a coffee now."
Yeah. Welcome to Bit of a Vast. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
That's right. Anyway, we are doing from season 7, episode 3, The Maestro, our penultimate season 7 episode for the entire podcast series. So our final season 7 episode will come a bit later, but this is the second last one in the series. So this one first aired in the US on October 5th, 1995, directed by Andy Ackerman and written by Larry David. In this episode, Kramer is pursuing his lawsuit against a coffee shop for selling him coffee that was too hot, and that happened in the postponement, the episode before this one. Jackie Childs makes his first appearance on the show. He's played by Phil Morris. He represents Kramer and thinks that they'll make a fortune. He may have a problem when Elaine's new boyfriend, the Maestro, played by Mark Metcalf, gives him a balm that cleans up his burn mark overnight. The Maestro insists that everyone call him Maestro, which is just a bit too pretentious. Meanwhile, George goes shopping with Susan at a store owned by her family. He's not too keen on the clothes she thinks he could wear, and he's bothered by the fact that the security guard, Gary Yates, must stand all day. And other secondary characters, of course, Susan, played by Heidi Swedberg. Ciccio, he's Poppy's uncle, who knows, he's obviously in the mafia, played by Paul Michael, and Tim Bagley plays the roster's manager. So, Stephen, what trivia do you have, bud?
Yeah, the first bit of trivia I have, and this is one of my favorite ones that we've read out in a little while, the mispronunciations done by Michael Richards as Kramer in this episode, and also I think the gum. In this episode, he says cafe latte. He sort of emphasizes it weirdly, and in the gum, I think he says theater. I always thought that they were choices by Michael just to make Kramer, extra quirky or add another quirk, but they're unintentional. And they were unscripted.
And there you go. So, Michael just turned it up.
Yeah.
He was in the moment. I loved it. I like the term cafe latte. It sounds very, very fancy. It sounds more like a French drink than an Italian drink.
I think a lot of people who aren't Australian probably just say cafe latte, but because Australians like to shorten everything, we just call it a latte here.
They say in Italy you should never ask for a latte because if you do, they'll give you a cup of milk.
It's so funny. I was about to say that actually happened to me when I was in Rome in 2008.
Right.
I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I went into a coffee shop, and I was very insistent. The barista kept on saying latte, and I was like, "Si, latte." And after about 3 times, he just goes, "Okay." And I complained to my girlfriend at the time. I was like, that guy was really weird. He kept on wanting me to confirm latte, and that was a bit odd. And then he just went, "Okay." And then a couple of minutes later, he brought out a glass of hot milk, and I felt very stupid. And it all clicked. I was like, "Oh, latte." I should
make sense
latte because
cafe latte. Yeah, I'm used to since I've gone to Italy, I'm used to saying cafe latte back here in Melbourne. But in Melbourne, you can get away with latte quite easily.
Oh, you can get away with that anywhere in Australia. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, regular coffee drinkers say cafe latte. Maybe if people just want to be correct, or if they're a bit fancy, or if they're just inexperienced coffee drinkers. I think 99.9% of Australians say latte all the time.
Give me a cappuccino, mate. A cappa.
Even cappuccinos, it's mostly cap these days.
A cap,
I just have a cap. Just a cap.
Soy cap, almond cap.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's almost like, when you're in a coffee shop and you hear the baristas call out the orders, or like the wait staff will call out the orders to the baristas to make it, or they'll call out the orders to you to pick it up. It's almost like the abbreviations they use has just sort of been picked up by the general public, because you often hear that it'll be like half strength or like half cap, 2 sugar or something, which is like a half strength cappuccino with 2 sugars. But now people just in the public say that. So it's almost like it's bled over a bit.
It's really weird. Yeah, I've never heard someone say shug though.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times. Shug.
Okay, never heard it. Okay.
Yeah, or just like half cap with 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, obviously, we've never put it in our pants trying to go into a cinema, though.
No, well, not intentionally. I have spilled many times. I've spilled lots of things. But never intentionally.
That's right. Anyway, I feel like because this is the first ever episode with Jackie Charles in it, the famous Jackie Charles, and we have done a very special episode of What's the Deal With on him, so go back and listen to that one. Jerry, apparently in Phil Morris's audition, he was so impressed by Phil's audition that he turned up the air conditioning and he remarked, "You're so funny, you're making me sweat." Pretty good, pretty big accolade there.
Yeah, that would be an awesome compliment, especially coming from a comedy legend and the person that's deciding whether you're going to be in the show. That would be a good ego boost.
And then we see Jackie several more times in the series.
Yeah, what I really like about, and I only really realized in this episode, is, some of the more major secondary characters, the first episode, they're still kind of feeling it out, and it might not be until the second or third episode that they're their full selves, Whereas from the first scene, the first words that come out of Jackie's mouth, it's perfect. There's no sort of, he's still trying to figure out who Jackie Charles is. It's just from the first scene, hit the ground running. He is exactly who he is, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, he's quite consistent.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of say Newman, and obviously characters evolve, but Newman in season 3, 4, 5 is less maniacal. He's still a creep, but he's not as dramatic and Shakespearean, and it takes him a while to fully become his true self, I guess. Whereas Jackie Charles is just, like you said, consistent. He's from the first scene, you know exactly who he is and what you're going to get.
Yeah, and he's one of my favorite secondaries for sure.
Yeah, I think he's one of, a universally loved secondary.
Yeah, especially on Seinfeldisms too. Lots of Jackie Charles quotes on the page.
Yeah, he would be top probably 5 or 10 most secondary quoted or posted character for sure.
Yeah, and the Kramer's hot coffee lawsuit, it's a nod to the infamous 1994 case in which Stella Liebeck, a 79-year-old woman, won large cash damages by suing McDonald's after suffering third-degree burns on her thighs from a cup of extremely hot coffee. And I'm pretty sure I might have mentioned this trivia fact when we did the postponement a while ago. But yeah, this is what happened. It was actually a parody of what happened in real life, a very famous or an infamous case in the 90s.
Yeah, this is one of those like culture-defining situations. Even when I was 10, 11, like around when this happened, I just remember it being headline news, I guess because it was so significant, especially in, American culture in a way, because, America's got the reputation of being quite sue-happy. People are quite litigious over there. That's why there's a lot of like no cash, no win lawyers, those sorts of things.
Oh, Kramer, you're quite litigious. Oh, I can be litigious.
Oh, I can be litigious. Great word as well.
Oh, it is.
And I don't know if that culture in America existed before the 90s. This lawsuit seems to be a landmark in that sort of, part of American culture, that sue happy, everyone gets sued, everyone's got liability insurance type thing.
Well, luckily we're not really like that over here.
Not as much. I mean, there's
not
still,
as much.
Yeah, people are still pretty. They can get on their sue horse a bit over here, which is a bit of a I don't know. People like when people fuck up, they don't want to take responsibility. Like I remember when I was a kid growing up in the suburb I grew up in, a woman tripped over a very obvious crack in the pathway, and she sued the council. And it's like, well, the council can't provide 100% perfect footpaths all the time, every time. I don't know. I just think that that's a case of, well, you fucked up. Just deal with it. Don't blame others because you didn't see a big, very obvious crack.
And let me guess, she won, right?
I think so, yeah. I just remember reading about it in the local paper, in the late 90s or early 2000s. And I just thought, I don't know, maybe... I'm always.
I mean, if the sidewalk fell out from under you while you were walking, and you fell into a sinkhole or something, fair enough. But if you see a crack and you trip on it, it's kind of your fault.
Yeah, it's like I understand that you shouldn't have to worry about tripping over a sidewalk, and the council does have the responsibility of providing safe walkways. But at the same time, by suing them, you're kind of implying that all walkway or every single part of council property should be 100% safe 100% of the time. It's just unrealistic. So it was a bit dodgy.
A bit dodgy. Now she's getting free concreting for the rest of her life.
Yeah, free footpaths.
Like Kramer with the cafe lattes. Yeah. Free footpaths, free concreting, free carpentry.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Anyway, let's take a quick break now, and when we come back, we'll talk about some secondary characters from the Maestro.
You're listening to, but I don't want to be a secondary character.
So let's talk about Stephen Bob Cobb, aka Maestro, the eponymous character that this episode is named after. He's played by Mark Metcalf. He also appears in Season 7's The Doll, which we recorded, I think, maybe 2 months ago or thereabouts, month and a half ago. We've already listed his credits in that episode, so we won't say what he's been in. So, check that one out. I won't repeat myself with what Mark's done in his career. So this is the first of 2 appearances for the Maestro, Steve. And, we can see that he's a very stuck up, kind of guy, and he likes being called Maestro, even though he works, he does maestroing for a police band.
Yeah, I think when we in the Doll, we did say that he probably wants the accolade and the prestige of being called Maestro because he, maybe he doesn't see himself as successful as he thinks he should be. I think we also talked about how in the conducting world, there's probably a lot of people going after very few elite level jobs. So,
yes.
There's a lot of dejection and a lot of maybe even bitterness and a lot of insecurity. So I think him being called Maestro, or insisting that people call him Maestro, even though he's a very not low end, but not a high profile conductor. That's his way of making himself feel better about the fact that he may never, or he'll probably never reach the big time.
Yeah, he's more of a volunteer Maestro more than a professional paid one.
Yeah, I mean, obviously his passion is, is unwavering. The fact that he just pulls up in a car and he's conducting in the middle of New York and doesn't care about what anyone thinks about it. He obviously loves what he does, which is commendable. But yeah, the constant insistence, and it's not just the insistence, but it's getting upset when people forget, and just being really, really bothered when people don't even know. When Elaine, when they're on the date, and she said, "Oh, what are you having to eat, Bob?" And he has to send the waiter away and make a big deal out of out of being called Maestro. And then he gets a bit stroppy when Elaine pushes back. She's not rude or anything, but she's a bit sort of like, she's a bit confused, I guess, or just a bit like, what? And she pushes back softly. And even then he starts to get a bit stroppy. He's like, well, I suppose Leonard Bernstein can be called Maestro. So the fact that he insists, but then also gets upset when people don't comply 100%, it says a lot about, a deep insecurity, I think.
Yeah, if he's very insecure, he can become quite ropeable if he doesn't get called Maestro. I don't know if we mentioned this in the doll, but I feel like with Bob Cobb, I feel like he doesn't like his name, and maybe he's been teased growing up in school, like Bob Cobb, Cobb of corn, or something like that. And I think it's probably really affected him psychologically, so he'd rather not be called by Bob Cobb, because, when someone calls him Bob or Bob Cobb, to his face, he gets really upset and he insists on Maestro. I feel like as well, in addition to Maestro, Bob not being too happy in the fact that he's not doing what he loves professionally, I also feel like it's also a cover for not wanting to be called Bob Cobb as well.
Yeah, I mean, George and who else? There's someone else in this episode who's like, Bob Cobb. Even they're just like, what are we?
Jerry as well. Yeah.
Jerry does, yeah.
Oh, I think Kramer too. No, Kramer and Maestro are already friends.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
I just remember George going, Bob Cobb, he doesn't know who he is.
Bob Cobb.
When Jerry says who he is, he realizes. But I think you're right that the name Bob Cobb would be used against him, by kids when he was a kid. He teased a lot for it. So
the name Maestro certainly hides his insecurities.
Yeah, I think the Maestro. I think what we can say is that him insisting on being called Maestro is partially because he feels dejected and just insecure about where he is in the conducting world, as well as just a general cover for his name that he used to get teased for a lot. I think it serves a few purposes.
It does. I mean, there's different ways you can look at it.
Yeah, but
sure.
I would assume that it's for both reasons.
Why do you think Elaine is attracted to him?
I think because he's got an air of, he likes the finer things in life. He likes Tuscany, and I'm imagining he likes wine and good food, and he is, and Elaine is attracted to those sorts of things. She does tend to go for men who are well-read, well-educated, a bit more refined, and I don't know how. I mean, Bob Cobb was obviously wealthy enough to afford a house in Tuscany, and live in New York, so he's obviously not doing too bad, So I think it's just that, and the fact that he's just a bit kooky. I think Elaine's at least at the start intrigued, and he is a charming man. He's very well spoken. He's very flirtatious to her, whilst also being respectful. So I can see why Elaine would be attracted to him.
Yeah. Well, and also she likes classical music as well. I mean, when Bob has Verde on the in the car stereo, she's like, Verde, perfect, and then she starts singing La Donna Mobile.
Yeah, she knows the words, and she's very much into the conducting. She's very animated. So I think she appreciates just sort of who he is and what he likes.
Yeah, and the fact that even though she doesn't like calling him Maestro, she'd rather call him Bob, she still likes him enough to go to Tuscany with him to stay in his house.
Well, to be fair, she did say, Jerry said, did he insist on calling you Maestro? And she said at first she was a bit resistant, but then she was okay with it. So
yeah, she's like, yeah, true. Yeah, she kind of got over it. Yeah.
We've talked about, and it's well known that Elaine is probably the smartest out of the core four, or at least the most intellectually smart, but
most successful too.
Yeah. She also is quite shallow. She does tend to go for men who maybe have a bit more money, or, maybe have a bit more material, like access to, material things. So I still think she would be into him, and I still think she would at least go out with him a few times, even if he didn't have the house in Tuscany. But that definitely makes it easier for her to be with him.
Yeah, interesting how he does have the house in Tuscany, and it's funny how Ciccio, the Godfather type character, he says to rent one is 12 million lira or 17 million lira, and it's what is 12 million lira, and it's equivalent to
I think he says 4 million lira.
4 million, yeah, and it's equivalent to $1,200 or $1,700 US dollars or something. Yeah, it goes to show how how devalued the lira was at the time. Probably not that bad, but pretty bad. Obviously now the lira doesn't exist. It's funny how Bob, I feel like the exchange rate probably helped Bob when he went to Tuscany. Finding a place in Tuscany probably cost him maybe 20 grand or something to buy. Because some of these small European villages, they have houses which are like a few grand, 10 grand, like really quiet villages away from everything. So I feel like Bob probably took advantage of the situation. He might have even paid in US dollars at the time.
Yeah, no, he could have, definitely. Like he said, he just got lucky. He was there, he fell in love, and it just happened to be for sale. I think, the price definitely also played a part.
Helped him out a lot. The good old exchange rate.
Yeah, for sure.
time.
I think his
When the US dollar was really strong.
Yeah, definitely. I think his insistence that Jerry not look for a place, even when Jerry doesn't even say that he is, he's just like, oh, I hear it's beautiful out there. And he goes, well, if you're thinking of looking for a place, don't bother. And Jerry just goes,
There's nothing around.
Yeah, Jerry just goes, what? Like he's like, what are you even talking about? I think it comes from a similar place to being insistent that people call him Maestro, which is that, well, if I have a villa or if I have anything in Tuscany that adds to my air of prestige and refinement, and I don't want anyone to sort of water that down, and Jerry is not a refined person, smart guy, but not a refined person in terms of taste. So if Jerry also owns anything in Tuscany, I think for him, he sees that as like a threat or diluting his prestige by saying, yes, I own a villa in Tuscany.
It brings down the whole, it brings down the whole romantic idea of owning something in Tuscany.
Yeah. And it is an impressive thing. If someone I knew owned a villa in Tuscany, I'd be like, wow, that's really great. So, it just allows him to have to maintain that slight snobbishness, and I just think it comes from the same place as being insistent that people call him Maestro. Yeah,
because even in the credits scene where Jerry and Kramer turn up, in Tuscany and they get out of the cab, you can see the Maestro is very not impressed.
Yeah, and they look out the window and they see them, having a bit of a argy-bargy with the taxi driver, and they both just shake their heads and go back in. Yeah,
go back in. Yeah, so he's not happy.
No, not at all.
Clearly, and like I said, we do see the Maestro again in the doll, but he's not as prominent in that one.
Yeah, no, this is definitely the main episode for him.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any other notes on him?
Oh, no, that was it.
All right, mate. Who are we talking about next?
Let's talk about Ciccio.
Ciccio, played by Paul Michael. He's appeared in Dark Shadows and Hill Street Blues, and he passed away in his 80s in the year 2011. So Ciccio, he is indeed Poppy's uncle. So Poppy, obviously, probably not knowingly, or maybe he does know but fled, but he has ties to the mafia. Obviously, Ciccio is like the stereotypical godfather. In his white suit and his hat, and he's got his consigliere, by his side, and obviously he's obviously part of the New York, five families maybe of mafia. He's part of that kind of, the Gotti and all those kind of all those families.
Yeah, I couldn't tell whether he would be part of the five families because they were, American Italians, and I don't think in the history of the five families there were any Italian, because he's obviously Italian born because he's got a very thick accent, and he wants money lira. He's obviously, his English is good. He's obviously been in America for a while, but he definitely grew up and, probably even stayed in Italy until his like early adulthood, maybe in his 20s or something.
Yeah. I didn't mean he was part of the five families. I mean, he kind of worked with those families in that scene. That's what I mean.
In that world. Okay, right.
He was in that world, yeah.
Yeah, because I don't think, unless you go back to the original family founders, like Lucky Luciano and stuff, pretty much after that generation in the 20s and 30s, all of the heads and even the sort of middle management of the family were all American Italian.
Yeah.
I do remember in the 70s and 80s, I think they, I think it was called the French Connection, and it was like a big drug heroin operation through France and stuff. They brought over a lot of Sicilian, proper La Cosa Nostra members to New York, but they were just like the low end soldiers, and I think they called them the Zips. That was their sort of like derogatory name towards these, because they're all mafia guys, the Italians and the Americans, but culturally they're different. They think about things differently. They do their mafia stuff differently because it's different countries and different norms and cultures. But yeah, I don't think any of them ever ascended to even like middle management, definitely not upper management. No. But yeah, I think you're right in that. Obviously, he's a godfather, but not directly in any of the five families.
In the five families, no. I feel like as well that maybe Ciccio was probably like a target in Italy. Like maybe someone tried to assassinate him or something, and then he fled. Yep. And maybe he was able to gain alliances in New York, and then he's kind of protected, and he's probably gone up in the rankings. Yeah, he's made his bones and stuff, or maybe he was either already like a godfather in Italy and then moved, or maybe he was younger, like Vito Corleone in The Godfather. You see in part 2 how Vito comes to America and stuff, like what he does. Maybe it was like a similar story like that.
Yeah, no, that's a possibility. I like him wherever he's from, well, not wherever he's from, but whatever his situation is in terms of the mafia in New York. I really like him. I just love how
he's just so stereotypical.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. They're not really breaking the mold for gangsters, but especially Godfather gangsters. Like you said, his consigliere is there, coming to whisper in his ear, and Jerry. That's when Jerry realizes, oh, hang on, this guy's not just a normal Italian guy. He's a mafia guy.
He's mafia. What have I got myself into?
Yeah. What I really liked, I don't know if it was intentional or if it just sort of how it panned out. When Jerry first meets him, and Jerry says, I'm just wanting to know if there's any places for rent, and Ciccio says, yeah, here are the keys, and you write me a check. It's kind of implied that he doesn't understand what Jerry's saying and that he's confused. But then right at the end, when Jerry says again, no, I don't want to rent your place. I'm just wanting to know if there are any places to rent in general. He says, yeah, this one, capiche? So when Jerry first says, I just want to know if there's any place to rent, him insisting that he rents his place is based on confusion, or what you think is confusion. But then, the second part of that little scene is, no, he's not confused. He understands exactly what Jerry's wanting.
No, of course. He understands. He's making Jerry, he's kind of extorting him. It's like extortion.
Yeah. He's just saying, yes, this one, you will rent this one. And
you will rent this one, and there'll be consequences. He's implying there'll be consequences if you don't.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, the first half, it's kind of like when you first watch the scene, you think that Ciccio is not understanding where Jerry's coming from, that, he's misunderstood what he's saying, but then it's revealed that he's understood the whole time. That's all. It's just like a change in where you think Ciccio is coming from. That's all. Yeah.
You think he's like a bumbling, aloof kind of, Italian guy. And then you realize he's a calculating, he's like a head of the mafia family. And he's very cold and calculating.
Yeah.
And he'll get you under his thumb.
Yeah. The first half, it's just like, oh, he's just confused about Jerry's specific question. He's misunderstood, and he thinks that Jerry wants to rent out his place. But then the second half, you're like, oh, no. He knew all along. He knows that Jerry is not actually asking to rent his place, but he's still going to
But he's going to make him rent it.
Yeah.
I don't think $1,200 will do much, really, but I think it's just to show that, Jerry realized at that point that he got too far in. He probably should have kept, like, the whole idea as a curiosity rather than trying to venture in. And, he even got the mafia involved.
Yeah, I mean, it was Jerry wasn't to know, but he can't really do much.
Yeah.
When but like, George kind of completely disarms Jerry and just reveals the pointlessness of his plot. I mean, his plot, I really like Jerry's plot.
It's interesting.
It just completely unravels everything when he just goes, what, are you renting a house in Tuscany? No. And he's like, so what do you care? And he just walks
what do you care?
And then Jerry's
what
am I doing? Why am I insisting?
And usually it's George with the weird ideas, and then Jerry dismisses them. I like how this time it's actually Jerry with the weird idea, and then George is being like the reasonable one.
Yeah. And actually, just on that, Jerry at first is a bit derisive to George's plan of getting the security guard a chair. But then the next scene, after George goes to see the security guard and they're talking about it in Monks, Jerry's actually quite into the idea. He's suggesting different chairs to him, and, he's assessing George's idea. He's like, a bar stool he'd be able to, survey the area and stuff. So even that dynamic's flipped where Jerry's actually into George's, at first he doesn't like his idea, but then, a little while
later
he
gets into it.
Yeah.
I guess the theme for this episode is understanding and tolerance. Elaine eventually succumbing to calling Bob the Maestro, eventually giving in. And then, Jerry with the bar stool idea, at first not being happy with the chair idea, and then he gets more involved and accepts it. And then with the mafia, it's just like it's all about forgiveness, redemption. Yeah, another theme. So many different themes in episodes we've noticed lately.
Yeah, getting deep.
Very deep indeed. Anyway, do you have any other notes on Ciccio?
No, but I really loved him. I thought it was hilarious. I mean, even though
he was fun. He was only one scene, but he was really good.
Stereotype.
Of course.
It was done really well.
Yeah, he was good. Very well done. Anyway, let's talk about the security guard. He's played by Gary Yates. He's known for The Tower and In the Heat of the Night, among many other things. He's just like, I feel like he's probably a bit stern, but I don't think he really cares. Like, I feel like he does his job, but he, when George says, oh, do you want a chair? And he goes, no, I don't want a chair. Like, I just want to do my job. If someone offered you a chair, would you take it? And he goes, yeah, I guess so. So I think he just kind of just wants George to leave him alone, just do his job.
Yeah, I think he's a bit stern and a bit staunch with most people, because he kind of has to be. But, George, I think once George asks him how he feels about something, he starts to connect with him a bit more, not just, being a weird customer talking about a chair. When he's like, what do you think about a chair? He lightens up a bit. He relaxes a tiny bit. So, yeah, I think he's just, just a good, capable security guard. And once he realizes that George is not a threat, I don't think he assesses George as a threat, but more just as a curiosity, like where's this guy coming from? Like, why is this?
Yeah, what's his intent?
yeah, is he trying to distract me while someone else robs the store? Like it's a strange interaction. But once he realizes that, oh no, he's just concerned about my well-being, he relaxes a tiny bit more.
Yeah, and he becomes too relaxed because we see the final scene where the store, the store obviously has like bespoke clothing, and it's very like the Rosses because it is owned by the Ross's uncle, like Susan's uncle. Yep. So it's obviously very bespoke, high-end clothing. Yep. And the store gets robbed, and the security guard's asleep, so he gets a bit too comfortable in the chair.
Yeah, the chair was a bad idea in the end.
Very bad idea. Yeah, I love how George had good intentions to help the security guard, and then like the good intentions backfired. It's good. Like you think maybe George he's thinking about other people for once rather than himself, and then the act of being giving or providing goodwill or something to help out, it kind of backfires in the end, and it causes the store to get robbed.
Yeah, I mean, even though George's heart's in the right place, he's still being quite selfish about it. Like he's just sort of completely going against Susan's wishes. He doesn't ask his future uncle. He's still being a bit pig-headed about it. He's like, no, this is the right thing to do, and I don't care what anyone says. So I think if he talked a bit more about it, like maybe just floated the idea to Susan's uncle and had a bit of a chat about it, and thought it through a bit more, maybe he could have supplied him something to sit down on, but not so much of a relaxing chair that he falls asleep. George just sort of fixates on the idea, and that's it. So yeah, his heart's in the right place, but he's still a bit sort of ignorant and a bit selfish about it.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah. I'll clarify what I'm saying. Again, his intention is good, just the execution of that intention is a bit poorly thought out.
Very poorly. Well, he didn't expect the security guard to fall asleep, though.
No, but I think if he chatted to the security guard a bit more, and maybe his uncle, and just took a bit more time to think, is this a good idea, rather than just it is a good idea. Maybe someone would have brought up in those consultations, or if they sat down and had a meeting of like, hey, I really think your security guard would benefit from a chair. What do you think? And they had a bit of a chat about it and just discussed all of the possible ramifications from it. I'm sure someone would have gone, maybe he'll fall asleep. It could have been an idea that could have come up, and then they would have gone, oh well, maybe we can find a solution where he can relax, but he's still going to be alert. I don't know. He decided on it, and there was no further thinking through of it. That's all.
No, that's all. George, I guess George, he had intentions, like good intentions for once, but once again didn't go through.
Yeah, and I love it's pretty funny how George, is as soon as Susan's like, I'm not really concerned. What are you talking about? He's in a monologue. I can't believe I'm marrying a person who doesn't care that this man's on his feet for 8 hours a day with no chair. He's judging Susan, and saying that she's like this sort of unethical, unconcerning person. But
yeah, just doesn't think about others.
Yeah, who doesn't think about others. But George is the most selfish out of any character.
Oh yeah.
It's funny how George is like who am I marrying? This woman is horrible. But
it's almost George, like a Bizarro episode, wasn't it? Everything was just topsy-turvy with Jerry, George, everyone. Everyone
just zero self-awareness and total hypocrisy.
Nah, but that's what we love.
Yeah, totally.
All right. I guess the final characters we'll talk about are you want to talk about the Java World executives, right?
Yeah. Look, they're just typical business people. They're worried about brand image. They just want to make it go away, which is pretty classic.
Get rid of Kramer, give him free coffee for life, which Kramer, accepts. But then he tries to go into a store and they don't give him the thing. He's got the files, saying that he can get the coffee. So yeah, he feels like he's been ripped off.
Yeah. I didn't actually think about it, but it just occurred to me. Maybe they're just cutting his coffee off because they're concerned about his health.
Yeah. Well,
I don't think they're just going
pretty high on caffeine.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing it to spite him or to contravene his offer. I think it's more a case of like, this might actually affect your health. So we're just going to be responsible here. We'll give you as much free coffee as you want. But you've got to.
We've already given you 5.
Yeah, we'll give you as much free coffee as you want, but you've got to space them out a bit or do it a bit more sensibly. That's the only reason I think they were cutting him off, because he was obviously very high and very jittery.
Yeah, because sometimes you see like these food competitions once in a while. Say you're watching like cricket or tennis or something. Like over the years, there've been competitions where you win like free. No, obviously not through a court case, but you win like free, KFC or something for like a year or something like that. And then it's not like you can get $100 worth a day. It's like a limit. So it's like maximum like $20 or $30 a week or something like that worth of KFC or whatever kind of thing. So yeah, I feel like maybe they had like a terms and condition thing saying, you can get free coffee, but you can have a limit of like X amount, which was like in the terms and conditions in the settlement, but Kramer didn't read it.
Well, he holds out the contract and he says, see, it says right there, I can have as much free coffee as I want. Maybe it clarified what that actually meant further down. It's like, yes, you can have as much free coffee as you want, but
maybe like 2 a day or something.
6 pages later, it actually says it defines an amount.
There's like a daily limit, and they keep Kramer like on file, so they know who he is.
Yeah.
If you see this man walk into your franchise, do not give him coffee, or just give him one.
Yeah.
He's a very recognizable person.
Going to say it's hard to forget.
But going back to the executives, obviously, because in real life, this whole McDonald's case, it was a big deal. And Java World, this is obviously in the Seinfeld universe as well as the real world. It was a very unprecedented court case. So Java World didn't want to be like the test case with this kind of these kind of proceedings. They didn't want to, they didn't want it to be found that they were indeed responsible for the heat in the coffee cup and the faulty cap as well. So I feel like, you're right. It was just damage control, and they were saying, you know what, they were probably thinking, they were going to have a fight on their hands. So they were thinking, let's just offer this guy free coffee and see how he goes. And they were probably thinking like he'd fight for it. But they're really, really stunned when Kramer, offers it, accepts it before the guy even, reads out the entire thing. He says, I'll take it, and shakes his hand, and they're all stunned. They're like, okay, great. We're off the hook.
Yeah, I think Kramer was...
We thought we'd be in a court battle for a few years.
Yeah, no, definitely it was an unintended win. And I think it's because Kramer was so concerned about losing because he didn't have evidence of the burns anymore that he thought, oh, wow, they're actually offering me something. I expected nothing, so I'll just take it. He didn't consider the whole offer first.
He thought the balm would literally wipe away his opportunity to get something.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true. And Jackie, this is the first of his many public humiliations.
That's right. The other thing, it's not about the executives per se, but I thought it was it was nice to see, obviously these days representation is a pretty big thing that's talked about, and it's considered a lot, I guess, by casting producers and things like that. It was nice to see an African-American woman in an executive role amongst a bunch of white dudes. And obviously Jackie being an African-American man as well. It was, not a huge deal. Like Seinfeld, I think, did a pretty good job for representation, especially for the time. But yeah, it was just something I noticed. I was like, oh, that's nice. Usually it's, the next thing that comes to mind is Susan being a woman executive at NBC. But, she's not that it matters, but she's a white woman. Don't want to get too much
I get what you mean.
Yeah, it was just something I noticed.
To see a person of color in like an executive position.
Yeah. And it was just, again, it wasn't a big deal. It was just something I noticed and something I just wanted to mention because I thought it was it was a nice thing.
Very cool.
Yeah. The final thing that I thought about the executives, and I don't think it's I think it's a pretty flimsy thought, but it's just something that occurred to me, was when they're considering what they're going to offer Kramer before they turn up, they're like, we'll just offer him $50,000 and free coffee at all of our stores. It's funny how when he starts talking about the offer to Kramer, the first thing he leads in with the free coffee part and then the 50 grand. Maybe he thought, maybe there's a really small chance if I just mention the free coffee and they accept before the 50 grand, maybe I'll just try my luck to see if we can get away with not giving the 50 grand as part of the offer.
Yeah.
It was funny that he mentioned 50 grand and then free coffee, but then he flipped those details around when he was actually talking to Kramer. And part of me thought, maybe he just thought, I'll mention the free coffee, see if he'll jump up at the offer before the part.
Because that was the plan. The plan was they'll try really low, offering something really low, and most people, if they've been burnt by someone's product, they'll be like, no, I don't want free coffee. I'd never step foot in your establishment ever again. I want cash. And then they'll say, okay, 50 grand, which, to a corporation is nothing, $50,000 to keep it quiet. And then I guess they would have just escalated it, if they said, no, we don't want that. So it makes sense. It would have been pretty stupid if they went for the 50 grand then free coffee as well. But yeah, I get what you mean. They wanted different tiers to see how far Kramer would go. But they were really stunned when Kramer, they didn't even finish the first offer or the proposition, and Kramer said yes. So they were pretty chuffed.
Yeah, you can see the look on his face. At first, he's a bit shocked that Kramer jumps up and shakes his hand, but then when he realizes what's happened, he kind of gives this smug little look over to his colleagues and is like, "Yep, we won this one."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, but they were in a brief scene, but it was fun, and I like how it was the start of Jackie Charles's unfortunate, legal events with the Core 4. It's the very first one that stuff's up.
Yeah, he doesn't get a win until the finale, really.
No, even then. I guess he gets Sidra, you mean. Yeah, he doesn't win the case, but he certainly wins someone else.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, that were all the secondary characters from the Maestro. When we come back, we're going to find out where the episode sits in our top ones, or the episodes we have done so far, which is pretty much all of them in the series. And if any of today's secondary characters, I'm guessing Stephen has Ciccio in there, is in our top 20 secondary characters on the show.
Gentlemen, come in. Now, we don't want to take up much of your time. Let's make this short and sweet. Eh? We're prepared to offer you all the free coffee you want at any of our stores throughout North America and Europe. Plus, I'll take it.
All right, buddy, out of 164 episodes, this episode for me sits at 119. Where does it sit for you?
Yeah, around the same, 125.
Yeah, cool. I mean, there was some fun moments. Larry David wrote the episode, and it was very, once again, Larry David writing an episode, it does feel a bit Kirby, in terms of, the plots and the way that, the dialogue works and stuff, which I like. Yeah, I found it fun in parts. Obviously, it's the first appearance of Jackie Charles, and Jackie's one of my favorite secondaries, so he helped rocket this episode up the list a bit more than what I expected with the Maestro. I mean, the Maestro itself isn't really a memorable episode in the Seinfeld canon, but it does introduce, of course, Bob Cobb and Jackie Charles and Kramer. We see the after effects of what happened in the postponement with his hot coffee, and we see Jerry being too inquisitive that it costs him $1,200 to rent the flat in Tuscany or the house, and George, while trying to be generous, it actually backfires indirectly.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I realized after this episode that Bob Cobb is probably, maybe a few others would be as well, but he's one of my least favorite characters, secondary or primary. Something about him.
I can see why you wouldn't like him.
Yeah, he's just not funny. People's reactions to him are funny. How Jerry just thinks it's stupid, but himself, just something about him just really irritates me.
I feel like they probably could have done more with him. The Maestro probably could have gone bigger. I feel like he was probably a bit too subdued. I reckon if they made him really outlandish and loud and extroverted, maybe it'd be funnier. Maybe a real, I don't know. I feel like if he was more lively, he'd be funnier. Yeah. I just feel like he was just a touch subdued for my liking. But if he went big, he would have been funnier.
Yep.
With the whole Maestro thing. But anyway, that's just me.
Yep, fair enough. Do any of the secondaries appear in your top 20?
No, but where does Ciccio sit for you?
It doesn't enter my top 20, but definitely if I had a top 30, it'd probably be in the mid-20s.
Ah, sweet. Excellent. Yeah. Anyway, that was the Maestro for Bidwabask. And next week, Stephen, we are doing the non-fat yogurt from season 5, our second last season 5 episode.
Yes, and the first appearance of Lloyd Braun.
Yes, but not the Matt McCoy version, the other guy.
Yeah, OG.
Peter Callahan, I think his name was. Yeah. Callahan? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so we'll talk about him. And there's also a very prominent real-life person that's featured in the episode. We won't talk about, obviously, but he was the mayor of New York at the time. So we'll talk about the non-fat yoga and the events of that episode, as well as Lloyd Braun. And so that's our second last season 5 episode. Thank you so much for listening to us. We do appreciate it. And we understand we're so close to the end, but we've had listeners who've listened to us from day one and people who've jumped on recently and have told us they've enjoyed listening to us. So we do appreciate you listening to us, no matter how far back you've gone. We do appreciate the support a lot.
Yeah, no, it definitely means a lot. If you want to, you can email us bidwabarspodcast@gmail.com. You can check out our socials in the show notes. If you want to help us out, you can rate us or review us on your podcast app of choice. That would be awesome. And you can support us financially as well. We do have a PayPal for one-off donations and a Patreon for subscriptions. And if you do sign up to the Patreon, you will get access to our normal episodes like this one a week early, as well as access to our bonus content like Curbcast and our fictional season 11, where we've written a bunch of Seinfeld episodes set in the modern day.
Yeah, that's right. And with Patreon, you're probably thinking, you guys are nearly finished with the podcast. Why should I sign up? If you're on the fence, we actually have plenty more stuff coming up. So we'll mention that in the coming weeks. And so the Patreon page will live on, in another form. So you'll still be supporting us into the future if you sign up today. So don't feel like you've missed the boat.
Exactly right. And finally, we do have the big Seinfeld community online. It's called Seinfeldisms. It's a Facebook group. Check that out. And lots of cool things coming up. But until next week, I am Stephen.
And I am Ivan.
And we'll catch you all next week for the non-fat yogurt.
La donne mobile, something.